This meeting is for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Peter will be sharing on freedom from the bondage of self for 50 minutes, followed by participant sharing. Peter, it is an honour to be here today and sharing your 35th anniversary. You have been an inspiration to me since the first time I heard your message 3.5 years ago. I see you as a fine example of someone who sat all the way down in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I admire the way you give so freely of your time in service. You are a soldier for the kingdom, touching the hearts and lives of alcoholics all over the globe with your experience, strength and hope. Some of the things that I've learned from you, I continue to pass on to others who are suffering from alcoholism. This is your 6th time speaking at the Broken Elevator. Tamara mentioned that I was working you like a rented mule. Thank you for saying yes. We love having your presence at this meeting. Thank you. At this time, please help me give a warm welcome to Peter M. from Boca Raton, Florida. His home group is Alcoholics and God. Welcome, Peter. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. My name is Peter, recovered alcoholic, and grateful to be alive and sober and part of a sacred place called Alcoholics Anonymous. And thank the group for having me back here. You guys had reached out to me and said, "Are you free?" And I said, "Oh my God, it's my AA birthday." I was telling friends earlier, since as far back as I can remember getting sober, somehow God has given me a talk to do either on my AA birthday or a day before or a day later. And that's been going on. I'm 35 since maybe 1 or 2 years sober. It's just worked out that way. And so I'm grateful to be here. And, if anyone who's new, just coming back, this is AA showing off that Alcoholics Anonymous and God really works. Contrary to some of the things you might see on out there in the news, Alcoholics Anonymous is alive and well and still performing miracles. And I get to do that walk. And I'm looking at some of the faces out here, and there's too many to mention, but I've walked with a lot of these folks out here via Zoom and in person. And I got to tell you, I'm a little overwhelmed. Pardon me. I spoke to my dad just a little while ago, and well, he's not doing so good, but we had a little chat. And, I remember the condition when my dad pulled me out of the street. It was 35 years ago today. And it was probably about this time I was standing on a street corner. And my dad just talked about that and how fast the time has gone. And quite frankly, it has. It's unbelievable that I'm standing here. I'm catching up to my friend Jimmy and Ralph. I'm getting closer to them. 35 years. I don't want to put an emphasis on the number. It's just I can't believe I stuck around this long. I never finished anything in my life. I always blew it up. And this is truly a gift for me, and I get to do it with some dear friends and a woman I'm absolutely crazy about. I do this journey with my wife. I went to Bellingham, Washington a bunch of years ago for a talk and came home with the wife. I mean, that's how AA works. It's I didn't know where Bellingham was on the map. I had no idea where I was going. I landed in Seattle. It was about a 7-day trip to get to Bellingham by car. And I get there and I walk in and, here we are, married over a year. And so far, so good. No cops, no lawyers. My marriage is working out so far. It's great. So I want to thank the group for allowing me to be here. And obviously, June 23rd, 1988 is when God separated me from alcohol. And it's, it's this journey that we talk about. There's a question I need to consider. Do I want to follow a spiritual path and seek a spiritual path, or I don't want to seek God? And, for a while in AA, I was seeking a spiritual path. But in my big book, it doesn't say seek a spiritual path. It says, may you find him now. And seeking a spiritual path means I'm going to be looking for things that make me feel spiritual. I feel happy, must be spiritual. I feel sad, I must not be spiritual. I'm going to be gobbling up all sorts of books and taking all sorts of turns in this constant journey of hoping to feel spiritual. to convince myself I'm okay. And something about finding God or seeking God, it's who I'm looking for, I'm looking with. I don't have to look too far. And somehow I had it wrong at the beginning, but spirituality is a byproduct of God. God is not a byproduct of a spiritual walk. The only way I can do a spiritual walk is by coming in contact with God. Now we have steps to do to get me out of the way. The whole process is one of removal, not addition. But I discover what was there all along on June 23rd, 1988, when I'm standing on the street. I was in serious trouble back then. And I think about it. I woke up this morning thinking where I was and the condition I was. I had just as much God in me on that particular day as I do right now. Whether it's a little or a lot, it's not like God doesn't discern what I'm going to give you and not you. It was the discovery, the aha moment. And the third step says we keep close and performers work well. I don't have to get close to be close. I just have the aha moment as I get out of the way that God's been present all along. And I get to travel a lot lighter. I can say I pray, so I'm a prayer. I meditate, so I'm a meditator, and that's a wonderful thing. But I got to be real careful how my mind doesn't get involved with that right away. That if I'm having a tough day, I should have prayed longer. If I'm having a tough day, I should have meditated longer. Oh, I pray and meditate for 2 hours, and I walk into work and I get fired, and I need to pray and meditate longer to have a good day. That's not what that's about. No mind attached to it. I just pray. And I watch God's miracles in prayer happen for me in my life, and others happen for me. And my prayer today is basically honoring, giving reverence to that power, which no words can be really used to describe that power. I do it on bended knees as a sign of humility and reverence to this power. Understand who I'm talking to. I'm not talking to a butt on the phone. I'm talking to the power. And so that's how I do that. And it's centering. And I don't go to God in a transition or a negotiation. I go to God to be changed by Him, carry the vision of His will into my activities. I would love to tell you do this perfect all the time. I don't. But that's my goal. Well, I remember when I was new, I would emulate what the old timers would do, and they would say sobriety is my number one priority. And I got to tell you, the truth is true until I discover a new truth. Now, sobriety is a priority to me. But my number one priority today is having conscious contact with God, to please God, to serve God. I get to do that in Alcoholics Anonymous. To stand with God, even though I'm on the firing line, I'm going to draw fire, but I'll stand with God and shout His name from the rooftops. That's what this is about for a guy like me. So it's having conscious contact with God, whatever that God is. Somehow when I have conscious contact with God, I'm not drinking. When I have conscious contact with God, life is not my master. When I have conscious contact with God, I'm starting to see things differently, because what God simply does is close the ears to my mind and open up the ears to the soul. And it's really important to me to clean up old scrapes and make relationships right and offer an olive branch and let God do what He's going to do and pray for other people. Sometimes I say I can't feel God, I can't hear God, and life has got me. And so I pray harder, God, please, let me see things different. And it came to me one day, if I stop praying for other people and all the suffering in the world, I get out of my own way and I start to hear a little bit different. I start to see a little bit different. So as much as work we get to do in Alcoholics Anonymous, for me, it's not really about me. It's about God and other people. And somehow I'm traveling a whole lot lighter. It's a long way from where I started and ended up. And real briefly, I pick up a drink at 14 years old. And from that moment, my life was never the same. Even as I speak to you now, it's never been the same. I had no idea what was about to happen to me. I wasn't doing okay before my first drink. I like a lot of us, I've heard enough of your stories. I was full of fear, insecure, inadequate, no matter what I did. I had a gift as music, and no matter how many accolades I got, it wasn't enough. I still felt not okay about me. I had a lot of secrets that I couldn't tell anyone. about my mom's suicide, and prior to that, her drinking and taking narcotics and in and out of psych wards. Me walking around with a dad that I was just terribly, terribly afraid of. I'd rather just be outside than to be in the same room with him. He was a tough, intimidating man back in the day. And I was always lying, and he knew it. And I had things happen to me as a little boy that would just caused a lot of shame and pain, emotional and quite frankly, some physical pain. That this person who did these things to me should have been locked up and thrown a key away. And so, how do you process that when you're 7 and 8 and 9 years old? All I know is I'm not okay. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to talk about. This stuff too. And then I pick up a drink at 14 years old. I watch the little guys drink, and I like the effect being produced in them by drinking a beer on a street corner. They seem to have it together. They seem to be doing okay. They seem to be happy. I don't know what this word happy is about. I see people smiling and hanging out. How do you get there? I don't know what that's like. Because what was going on in my head was awful. And I got to tell you, when I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous at 28 years old, sober, what was going on in my head was awful. It didn't change because I suddenly got sober, like physically sober. I still had the stuff going on in the head. And what I can report to you from my own experience, and I'm not a spokesperson for AA or anything like that. I'm just telling my story. But what I can tell you from my own experience is that this thing that I have wasn't going away because I was suddenly struck sober in 1988. It followed me right into Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wasn't okay in my early days. In fact, I developed an eating disorder during my first year. And that was kept secret. I didn't want to tell anyone about it. And I'm binging and purging to the point of getting quite sick. And it was the secret life I had because there was stuff going on. And I wasn't on a spiritual path. I didn't even know what that was. But God kept me out of harm's way. He pulled me out once again. A lot of times in AA, we'll hear our members talk about the second surrender or the third surrender. Well, do I really surrender, or do I truly get surrendered by a loving God who reaches his hand down and pulls me out of the well once again? Because there's work for me, for us to do, and he needs me on the firing line. And I have found when the plea is sincere enough, I'm not looking to negotiate or bargain, but on bended knees in that darkest moment, in my most weakest, most vulnerable, and way too transparent moment, I suddenly find God's light, God's strength, God's endurance, God's passion, and I put one foot in front of the other and chop wood and carry water, and I'm back in the saddle again. And what my mind wants to do is quickly forget that 90 days when another piece of adversity shows up. Here we go again. And God keeps rescuing. I think we do a disservice if I get on the soapbox to our newcomers when we hide God in the box, in the closet somewhere. It is, my big book says I'm suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience would conquer. It doesn't say by acquiring a whole bunch of knowledge and doing a perfect fourth step. Those things are nice to do, but all those things are vehicles to put me in God's hand. God put me in AA. And I've often said AA takes me to God, but how's that happen? Because God's putting my hand in his hand in reality. I mean, that's what's going on here. So at 14 years old, I pick up my first drunk, and it was euphoric. It was unbelievable. I felt wonderful about me, the world. I wasn't thinking about my dad, and I wasn't thinking about my mom. I wasn't thinking about this man who molested me. I wasn't thinking about any of this stuff. I was very present to the moment. There was no before and later on. I'm drunk and I like it. I got to be really good looking. I get really good looking when I'm drunk, by the way, and I get muscles. I get to be I'm about 6'4". When I'm drunk, I go about 6'4", and I'm shredded. I mean, it's incredible, and it's unbelievable. The girls get very pretty too. I don't know how that goes, but they get very pretty, and like I've often said, I thought I was taking Bo Derek home in the morning. It was Bo Diddley, and I don't know how the hell that happened. It was euphoric. And I remember walking home that night, and I realized I never want to be that sober guy anymore. I want to stay drunk forever. I love the effect produced by it. I'm not walking into school on Monday morning sober. It's not happening. I just want to stay drunk. And we don't realize how trapped we are, how much bondage we're in. At least I didn't until I tasted a little bit of freedom. And that night I tasted freedom and I realized, oh my God, I've been walking around tighter than a Major League Baseball. I want that panacea for all of my ills. That's what I want. But God wasn't a thought back then. In fact, after my mom passed away, I wasn't a conscious decision, but somewhere back here I rejected God. I never was an atheist, but I knew God was make-believe. And so I'm on my own. And then the mind loves that because the mind loves to be busy. It likes to be employed and it takes over. And I start to see through the mind and hear through the mind and speak through the mind. I act through the mind. And because of that bad vision and bad hearing, I have bad actions. And I try to chase that feeling of feeling euphoric for a long time. And it took me to, like most of us know, to jails and institutions and knocking on death's door, to humiliation and degradation at the end. And you get to a point, at least I did, where I was like, how did I get here? This was not the plan. Whether it's Park Avenue or Park Bench, the emotional pain gets our attention. A homemaker or a CEO of a company, it's that thing when the kids look up at us and say, Mommy or Daddy, why are you drinking again? Or the boss says you're fired. Or sometimes you just stumble over to the medicine cabinet and look in the mirror and you see what's looking back. How did I get here? Pain is too great. I can't do it. It's too dark. I need help. And it took a whole bunch of years and bottoming out, treatment center after treatment center, getting into narcotics and a lot of other things and a lifestyle that was deplorable until June of '88 rolled around. I had been homeless for a while. I don't know how to do the streets. I'm not a stick-up guy. I'm not a violence was never a problem for me. I have these rage moments, but I wasn't a violent guy. And I wasn't a fighter. I was too weak to fight anyway. So I don't know how to do the streets. I was afraid all the time. And when your body gets reduced to 130 pounds on a good day and you stand 5'11" and you're urinating blood and running around with hepatitis C, I can't fight anyone. I'm afraid if I get arrested one more time, the judge at some point when you show up in court enough, they put you away. And I was really in a dark spot. I got to a point around my sixth treatment center where I realized I'm never getting out. I'm never going to get sober. And I had the aha moment sitting in this detox. I walked out after 36 hours, which I was oblivious to at this point, but it just came to me like God does at the 11th hour. The pain I'm putting my family through, that hurt more than what I was going through. That I had no right to do this to my brothers and my dad. And in sobriety, I have no right to demand that you make me comfortable, that you go to any lengths to make me comfortable. And I did that for a long time, and I'm sitting in this detox, and I couldn't take that anymore. And I just wish I'd just go away. I just die. And I tried to do that when I got out of my sixth treatment center. I just wanted to end my life. I was reduced to that place. Now, as I say this, it's obvious bondage and difficulties that I'm experienced to, that I'm attached to and experiencing. I don't know how to get out because my mind owns me. It's a wonderful servant and a terrible master. And because I get sober in Alcoholics Anonymous and start acquiring some information, I still need a transformation. If not, my mind's going to own me. My mind will get involved with my step work. My mind will get involved with my prayer work. My mind will get involved with my meditation work if I'm not careful. It's that slippery and that sneaky. How often is my current reality based on what my thoughts are giving me? I see things happy today, so I'm happy. I see things doom and gloom, so I'm in that place. And usually what my mind does is diminish the positive moments and embellish the negative ones. That's what it does. And it's never here with you now. It's always about before and later on. And in 1988, June 23rd, the very same God I despise, quite frankly, I hate him for what he did to my mom. I hate him for what he did to me. I hate him for giving me a dad who knew nothing about sports and music, who was always out. I didn't realize he was doing what he knew, the best he knew how, to bring money into the house. Because, guys, I never wanted for anything. We weren't rich. But Christmas, there were toys under the tree, and there was always food on the table, and I had clothes to go to school. I didn't see that. I just saw my dad as this mean, evil guy. And I blame God for all of it. But in that moment, where the desperation screams louder than the ego, and then we kind of get split open, and there's this little vacuum where God's light can finally get in, things change. When our book says in the 12 step, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of the 12 steps, I mean, that's one of the biggest promises that the book offers. It's almost a guarantee that if you get on this course of action, this is going to happen to you. But where does it really begin? For me, it was an abandoned building hallway in June of 88, June 23rd, when I made a plea that God, please take me from this. I don't want to die. That's when the engine got turned over. Now, it was a long way from awakening, but it started there. I get a sponsor to take me through the steps. And God's taken me through step 1, 2, and 3. God's walking me through a 4th step. God's giving me the courage to sit in step 5 and so on. And then one day you realize, oh my God, it's God. The strength I needed to overcome fear. Biblically, strength is the opposite of fear. And God was giving me strength to overcome this type of fear, that I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate. And who am I kidding? My name is Peter Marinelli. I ruin everything. And God kept allowing me to chop wood and carry water. And after a year of going to my 7th treatment center, and a year later, I was brought home from Minnesota. And God does what God does. I've learned God's going to any lengths to pursue me and help me, and puts people, places, and things in my path, and removes some of them, and put a gentleman in my path in my first home group in Brooklyn. His name was Tony. He walked around with the big book. He wasn't well liked because he walked around with the big book. And he sounded a lot like the people in Minnesota. And I asked him, can you sponsor me? He kind of gave me that old timer look. He looked me up and down, sized me up, and he gave me an assignment out of the big book. I never got that before. I thought we go like to the local diner. I cry and talk for an hour and go home. And he immediately took me through the steps. And in a very short time, I was given a new perceptions and conceptions about many things. They didn't come from me, they came to me. Because God had his eye on me, as he does on everyone in this room. Every once in a while I wake up to, oh my God, it's God. If I got real clear all the time, not in my head, but in my deep down in my soul, that who walks next to me at all times, I would never be afraid again, no matter what's coming down. Through adversity and through wonderful times. My mind doesn't like that. And it tries to infiltrate and pull me away and make money a little bit more important today and make a career a little bit more important today. I tell you what God did for me about 3-ish months ago. I've been in the treatment center business forever. I'm only 18. I look this old because of what I do for a living. And about 3 or 4 months ago, my wife and I left a ton of money on the table and walked away. Because we're both convinced that we're trying to do God's work. We're in this not for money, but to help. And we left a lot of money on the table. And I have my little nonprofit. And you know what? My bills are getting paid. And Mary and I go out for dinner. And I'm putting gas in my car. And I can buy Mary a little gift now and again and be a good husband. But God gave me that kind of strength to say, you can walk away from this. I got you. It's little things like that as the result of the 12 steps. It's way beyond Alcoholics Anonymous. And I began a journey, and that was 35 years ago, and I've had a few sponsors since then. And I just feel I'm called to just mention some of those men who've helped me. Tony was one of them. Gary Brown was another. Don P. All these men helped me with the steps. They all had their hands on me, sponsoring me. Mark H. For me, the greatest teacher I ever had in my life. Bob Bazan, my current sponsor, Mickey Mussett from Colorado, and just a host of other men and women who got involved in my life because they cared about me. And I get to talk about that today and bear witness to the good news that the Big Book offers, the good news that God is giving to me to pass on to others and vice versa. My sponsor says, this is pitching and catching. I'm sharing, you're listening. Tomorrow you'll talk and I'll listen. It's the great thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, not a pecking order, not a running for office. The great equalizer, the walk into a room called Alcoholics Anonymous. The only place in the whole world that I know of, I can share about my most awful, disgusting, terrible things I've ever done in my life, and you say, here's my number, give me a call. Only in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I begin to go through the steps, and I find out the first person I walk into when I get sober is me. And I don't like that guy. And it's 35 years later, I don't want to see that guy again. I don't want to feel that kind of torment and pain. I don't want to feel that kind of humiliation anymore. I don't want to feel dirty again. Not only physically dirty, I don't want to feel dirty on the inside ever again. And because of Alcoholics Anonymous and this God, I haven't felt that in 35 years. I've been down on my luck. I've had difficult financial times. Adversity happens. But I've never felt that. And God allows me to keep one foot in front of the other. Third step says, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self. I'm going to stop there for a moment. The biggest trick my mind has ever played on me is to have me believe I am my mind. To have me believe that my thinking is true, therefore giving it a ton of power, and it owns me. And the narratives create narratives, which create narratives. And I'm in my head, and I thought, I have these thoughts. And the reality is the thoughts have me, because if they were my thoughts, I can exchange them for other thoughts. And it's not possible unless I'm wrapped up in God. If I surrender to God, if I lay them at God's feet, and help is a total, complete, honest prayer. The intent is pure. God, I offer myself to God, please take me like the wretch I am. Relieve me of the bondage of self. It's two things going on here. Bill, divinely inspired. There's me and there's self, and I believe we were one. Relieve me of there's a cord. Here's self out here and all its manifestations. All the 7 deadly sins, all of it's out there, and here's me, and there's a cord attached and has me joined together with that, and I'm going to God, please cut the cord. Let me live from the soul. Let me operate out of the soul. That's something my mind wants and has convinced me for a really long time and continues to do so while I'm sober in AA. Relieve me of that kind of bondage to this self. Take away my difficulties. What are my current difficulties? Me I don't get along with people. Maybe I'm very judgmental. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Imagine have me being judgmental. I get to the pearly gates and I have to tell God, you judge me the way I've judged my brother and sister for the last X amount of years. I'm in some serious trouble. What are my current difficulties? And I always point to the 7 deadly sins. We talk about defects and shortcomings in AA, the same thing. But what really fuels them? Fear. And here come the 7 deadly sins. My pride. I think I'm God. I put myself in place of God, which means you need to honor me. And I don't need to do too much because I'm God. How could I meet God, talk to God if inwardly I really believe I'm God? I'm judging everything and everyone. My anger, it insists I'm right. It's a roadblock to peace, to love and understanding. We see that going on in the world right now. My gluttony, I'm overindulgent in everything. My greed, I want more, and I'll take from you. My envy, I despise what you get because I think I'm supposed to have it. I'm entitled. It leads to coveting. A best friend, a brother, can succeed, and inwardly I'm angry. And I'll tell you what I did. I remember many years ago, my brother was the white collar guy, went down to Wall Street and graduated with honors and gets a job at a really famous brokerage house down there. And he was with them a short time. This is like 1983-ish, 84. And he got a Christmas bonus of $25,000. That's a nice check right now, let alone back then. And he was thrilled about it. He came running home and to tell my dad the good news. My dad was so proud. I hated him. You know why? Because it was supposed to happen to me. That's called envy. Lust. Not only sexual lust, it takes me down dark alleys and I have a secret sex life, which leads into infidelity. I should be practicing fidelity and faithfulness to God. It might allow me to have that in the rest of my affairs. But what about lust for power, property, and prestige? Lust to be recognized. We see that happening in the world right now. It's not working out too good. And sloth. I'm lazy. I'm out of work. I'm out of shape. I'm out of work. I have no money, and I don't get off the couch. I expect everything to be delivered to me. But what about spiritually slothful? I really don't give much time to my God. I don't go to my religious community. I'm too lazy to go to a meeting or even get on Zoom. I'm just kind of hanging around. You know, we say don't leave till a miracle happens, and I'm hanging around about 10 years. What are you doing? I'm waiting for the miracle to happen. It's going to happen sooner or later. That's bondage and difficulties, bondage and difficulties, bondage and difficulties. And it's all coming from my mind. I know I can talk about that because I've been in all of those places. I'm an alcoholic who's broken and flawed as God designed it, but I get an opportunity to move forward in that broken and flawed condition, not hang out in the mess. It's the way God made me. And I can continue to stay that way. Or I can really lean into God. My job is not the results business. It causes more bondage and difficulties. It says, relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them. So they're not saying, hey, you might become victorious. They're assuming we're going to have victory over these things because God has gotten in the middle of this, that I can be living proof to the next one who walks through the door of God's power, love, and way of life. We become agents for God. I become an agent for God. Living proof that this works. I'm 35 years sober. I'm not that smart. I don't have this kind of endurance or passion. God does. And when we celebrate anniversaries, it's really God. We're showing God off is what we're doing. We're showing AA off. Difficulties and bondage. The right amount of prayer or the right words might center me, but at the end of the day, all I can possibly do is surrender them at his feet. I can't heal what I don't acknowledge. And when I don't acknowledge, it will kill me. And it's sometimes painful to the ego to admit, hey, I have this stuff going on. I need to reach out and talk to someone about this. I need to surrender this. I need to write an inventory about it. It's blatantly obvious that I have a problem in this area of my life. Then I begin to heal or to have one leg out of the ditch. And so my journey has been, my sponsor calls it problems in sobriety. Not that sobriety is awful, because it's been the greatest thing God's ever given me. But we hit those dark spots. Life shows up sometimes. And what I've learned to do is stop praying for other people, pray for the suffering in the world. And somehow God gets me out of my own way. I heard a story that made so much sense to me. I just want to share it real quick. There was a guy lying on a couch day in and day out, not doing anything. Kind of like me during COVID, just watching Netflix over and over and over again and not doing anything. But this guy's just laying on the couch, accomplishing nothing, had dreams of accomplishing great things, but was just stuck in sloth. Gave up hope. And one day he opens his eyes and the Lord is standing in front of him and he says, what are you doing? Guy drops to his knees, says, God, I don't know what to do. And the Lord says, I have an assignment for you. He says, tomorrow morning, open up your door. I'm going to put a big boulder in front of your door and have an assignment for it. I want you to push the boulder. He says, anything, Lord, I'll do it. Guy wakes up the next morning, opens up the door. It's this huge boulder. Laces up his sneakers, starts push the boulder. As God told him, push the boulder, push the boulder. He does this every day for 90 days. And somewhere on that journey, Satan shows up. And Satan wakes him up. He says, what are you doing? He says, well, the Lord told me to push this boulder. He says, the Lord, what are you listening to God for? He says, you've been pushing and pushing and breaking a sweat. You haven't pushed it 1 inch. God tricked you. He says, you know what? You're right. You can tell all my characters sound like they're from Brooklyn, New York, by the way, including God and Satan. Guy goes back on the couch, and the next morning when he wakes up, there's the Lord. Asks him the same question, what are you doing? He says, Lord, over 90 days, I've been pushing this boulder like you told me to. I've been pushing and pushing from sun up to sundown, and it hasn't moved an inch. And the Lord replied to me, he says, I told you to push the boulder. I didn't tell you to move the boulder. That's my job. This guy's expectations on an assignment, what it's supposed to look like, where it's supposed to go, caused his moment of doubt and skepticism and fall to the dark side, if you will. What I need to do is do the work in front of me, put no expectations on people, places, and things, and just do what God has me do. I've heard my sponsor say 1,000,000 times, a doctor does the surgery, God does the healing. A farmer plants, and God does the growing. He stays out of that business. He doesn't have the power to do it. I found for me, my life gets really simple when I do the task at hand. And sometimes I don't know what to do. So I ask again, or I bounce it off someone, what do I do here? Mary and I have wonderful conversations in the morning. It happened organically. She'd pray, I'd pray, and we talk about what God put on our heart. That led into what are we going to do today? We talked about our hopes and dreams and things maybe we have to iron out sometimes, but it happens organically over a cup of coffee on awakening. No attachments to results. God will keep us okay. I'm convinced of that. The mind gets frustrated with language like that. The mind doesn't want to hear all my bondage, all my difficulties come from the greatest predator ever to hit the planet. It's a 4-letter word. It's called the mind. Why we tell new people, bring the body and the mind will follow, baffles me till this day. Leave the mind in the gutter. Come in here. Let us work on the soul. God may not be popular. It's not popular in the world right now. There's an attack on him. It can't come into AA. The more God gets trounced on, the louder we got to shout his name. The more people knock AA, the more meetings I make. And I'm going to stand shoulder to shoulder with Alcoholics Anonymous and my God. I'll take the heat. That's really okay. Because I walk today, on most days, I walk pretty free. I'm traveling light on most days. I would love to tell you every day, but that would be a lie. Because I get in my own way. My mind gets in my own way. But I have a God to lean into and beg for mercy and guidance and direction and strength. You know what? God has never doubted me. I've doubted him. God's never let me down. I thought he was going to let me down. He's consistent. He's constant. He's pristine and perfect, just like Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of imperfect people living in this perfect community called Alcoholics Anonymous. Angels with dirty faces, my sponsor used to call it. A room full of broken toys that we make sense to each other. I interact with civilians out there. It's interesting watching the civilians go into the store, on the highway. They're angry, and it's interesting to interact with them. But I must tell you, there's 3 places that I feel most comfortable and most safe. In the company of my wife, in Alcoholics Anonymous, and when I'm in church. And Alcoholics Anonymous is not only people in this meeting, but my friends. It's the 3 places I'm most comfortable. around AAs with my wife or in church. The rest is just play acting out there. You go about your business and you interact with other people. My job is to lead with love. My job is to lead with forgiveness. And somehow I stay out of my own way. And that bondage and difficulty, those knots get loose. I never want to return to the guy I was ever again. I'm excited about what God has for me moving forward. I have a different point of view on many things that just has come to me. The importance of relationships. What a treasure they are. And anyone's in this room, in this meeting, who's been around a while, we lose people unexpectedly. And you wish you had one more moment with them. Or maybe I should have told them I love them. Let them know where they are. And cleaning up those old scrapes suddenly become really important. That's the journey God has put me on. Including the homeless people walking around with nowhere to go. To bring some dignity and respect to them. I'm supposed to be doing God's work here, practice these principles in all my affairs. Those are part of my affairs. And I hope to never look down on someone. I would love to tell you to do that perfect, but I don't. I don't want to look down on people. I don't like when people look down on me. So I try to carry the vision of God's will into my activities and bear witness to those I would help up thy power, thy love, and way of life. And I love Alcoholics Anonymous. It really is my life. If anyone's new, this is going to sound terribly lame. I don't have a life. After 35 years, I don't have a life. There's something in Scripture says, if I try to find my life, I will lose it. If I lose it for his sake, I will find it. My life belongs to Alcoholics Anonymous, which means it belongs to God. And through that, I have a full and abundant, really busy life. It's unbelievable. There's some people in this room I get to travel to conferences with, and we get to break bread. The whole thing doesn't make sense, but in God's world, it makes perfect sense. I get to walk free, head up and shoulder square. My dad would preach to us, me and my brothers as kids, head up and shoulder square. Impossible. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I walk head up and shoulder square, no matter what kind of storm's in front of me, because I know who walks next to me. And it's really important that I know who walks next to you as well. I got that in the sacred rooms called Alcoholics Anonymous. And they are sacred. And I treat them as sacred as best as God allows me to. I want to thank everyone for being here, being a part of this meeting. I want to thank the group for inviting me back. It's really cool in AA. You go someplace and they don't say, don't invite him back. They say, can you come back again? The old days when they saw me coming, they shut the lights and locked the doors. He's coming back. They invite you back. It's a pretty cool deal. I love you. And I thank you for today. I thank you for my life. That's all I got, guys. Peace.